I thought, oh, miracle thing. But it's better than nothing. I'll witness it.
So how's everybody doing today?
Good.
How was the workout?
Good.
Good.
Fine. This is the most
Right.
food, you know?
Well,
Yeah,
it's the perfect combination is, you know, doing what you're doing here this morning 2 or 3 times a week. Okay, that's really what the CDC recommends 150 minutes of vigorous exercise each week. Now that can be walking, it can be a lot of things. But the point is, you really need to get your resting heart rate up so that you're feeling the difference, okay? I sometimes see people exercising that say, oh, I went for a walk. What's that? You know, you've got to get the ticker pumping, okay, and moving. I run. I live right next to the East Bay bike path, so that's my exercise routine. I can do that before I leave the house. So that's really nice. So find a time that's convenient. And the most important thing, good morning. The most important thing on exercise is not how much or how long you do it each time, as much as how regular you are with that. I've been doing my running for 27 years now, without fail, okay? I mean, that's what you need to invest in your body, okay? So if you started here for the first time doing vigorous exercise, you really need to think what you're going to do after the end of April, right? How are you going to get what you're getting here all summer, into the fall, all winter? Winter's tough. That's why we do these in the winter, because there are fewer options. But anybody going to run the 5K or walk the 5K winter race? No? Well, it's not that bad. It really isn't. And if you want to start out walking it,
They
pardon?
changed the course this year, didn't they?
Yeah, we're doing it up at the
When is it?
Industrial park?
industrial park this year.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, it's flatter.
yeah, it's flatter, right? The fewer hills,
Yeah.
but it's just a walk, and you can go at your own pace. So, and you don't have to do the whole thing. You know, you walk as far as you want, turn around, come back. That's simple. Okay. It's just nice when you're with a group of people, you get more of a challenge, and most of us do more when we're with somebody else. How many of you would do what you're doing every morning here, every Saturday morning here, all by yourself? Okay, it's pretty tough, isn't it? That's why, you know, you have a leader, you have other people, and you challenge yourself more because you're in a group, right? In the same way we're in a group here talking about what we eat. We all know by now that though we've been told fat is bad for us, in fact, that's some of the worst advice given to Western man, okay? That fat is a necessary part of our diet, and not only that, if we replace fats with carbohydrates, especially refined grains and sugars, that's when this happens, okay? So the way to reverse it is simply to go back to the way people were eating 60 and 70 years ago, okay? More fats in your diet, fewer carbohydrates, especially the refined carbohydrates. That's the cakes, cookies, you know, all that stuff. This presentation really follows some people's questions about cholesterol and heart disease and things of that sort. So I brought our expert who works with people all the time at the South Coast Diabetes Management Program, right? So you're on. Take it away. Thank you.
No problem. So I have a special interest beyond diabetes with cholesterol and heart disease, not only because it runs in my family. I've lost both my grandfathers and a grandmother to heart disease, and but also my first job was working with the cardiac prevention program, and we did cholesterol screenings out in the community. We did blood pressures and we did blood sugars. So we got the results right there with our little machines, and we were able to explain the numbers to whoever attended the health fairs or wherever we went. And so it was really great to have those numbers there. And you should know your cholesterol numbers. We're going to talk about what they should be. And because a lot of times you may get the lab report back from your doctor, but you have no idea what that means. My own mom call me up, okay, so my cholesterol's this, what does that mean? So it is important to not just know your blood sugars, but know your blood pressure and your cholesterol for good heart health. So you've heard Dr. Dave talk about SLTs in the past and the 60s and how we got started on this whole low-fat mantra that we've been talking about for the past 50 years. They started out with this lipid hypothesis, and this was their thoughts about how heart disease happened. Cholesterol and or fat in the blood leads to cholesterol and fat in the blood. It seems like a very, cause and effect. It seems very rational. Then, if we have a lot of cholesterol and fat in the blood, it causes plaque formation in the arteries and then heart disease because we have that blockage. And you've heard the example of plumbing and how rust will block up the pipe, and that's where this is going. So, therefore, cholesterol and fat in the diet causes heart disease. That's the logic that we've been following for so long. Unfortunately, we're going back and realizing things are a little bit different than what we originally had been teaching. But when you look at your numbers, these are the current recommendations. So we want your cholesterol to be, and I had said this a couple weeks ago when I was speaking, I don't really call it high cholesterol. It's really dyslipidemia. It's a disproportionate amount of cholesterol there, because not everything needs to be under a certain amount. You should have more of the good cholesterol, or HDL, which is healthy. So let's start at the top. Your total cholesterol should be under 200. Your HDL, or H for healthy, should be over 45. The higher, the better. If you're lucky and you have the genetics, maybe your HDL will be close to 100. That's awesome. Your LDL, L for lousy, that's the bad cholesterol, and we want that to be under 100. Some doctors, if you have diabetes or a history of heart disease, then they want it under 70. Triglycerides, those are another type of fat in the blood. Those should be under 150. And there's another ratio that can be calculated, taking your total cholesterol and dividing it by your good cholesterol, and you'll get the ratio, which should be under 4.5. If you're under 4.5, you're really good. And so, one example before we leave this slide, to go back to talk about the total cholesterol, I really think people should just take the total cholesterol, throw it out the window, because as an individual number by itself, it really doesn't tell you a whole hell of a lot. If your total cholesterol, say, is 240, your doctor's going to be like, your cholesterol's high. But let's look at the bigger picture. If your HDL is 80, and you take 240 and divide by 80, then your risk is only going to be 3.0. That is fine. Your cholesterol is not a problem because you're producing so much good cholesterol. If you have a cholesterol of 240 and your HDL is only 30, and it's not above 45 where it should be, it's only 30, now you have a risk factor of 8.0. Now you're really in trouble. So, and you really should address that. So you can see how having a good or a bad HDL can really change the picture, not so much the total cholesterol. Any questions on that?
Well, my last physical in January,
Yeah?
I was going to this doctor for 30 years.
Yeah.
It came out where it actually said on the side, like, you should work on this, you should work on this. No risk or high risk. I've never seen that before.
Oh, well, that's good. That's really good.
Some new program, I guess.
I still think that everybody should know their own numbers and should be able to interpret their own numbers, because a lot of, the National Cholesterol Education Program is still putting a lot of emphasis on the LDL. They're putting a lot of emphasis on total cholesterol. So it's important to also know what it means to have the HDL, the triglycerides, and all that. What they're recommending now is if your LDL is over 70, you should be restricting your saturated fat to only 7% of your diet. You shouldn't be having more than 200 milligrams of LDL, don't write this down. This is not what I would recommend. This is what is being recommended by the government at the moment. But this is because they're putting so much emphasis on the LDL, the lousy bad cholesterol. Don't write that down. Saturated fat is not a problem. We'll talk about it in another slide. But the reason they're recommending these things was because of that lipid hypothesis. They were thinking, if you have a lot of cholesterol and saturated fat, you're going to have a lot of it in your arteries. Your body's smarter than that. And just to throw a little wrench in there, if you're having a lot of sugar and alcohol, that causes your triglycerides to go up. And these are all things that, when I was working at my old job, was common knowledge. And I was like, how does your body know? How does it get it that it needs to have less saturated fat for this type of cholesterol and less sugar for this? It just never made sense. It makes more sense that your body actually knows what it's doing. When you have saturated fat, it actually causes your LDL particle size to switch. There's two different types of LDL. So the total number of LDL under 70 really, again, is a total number. And there could either be light, fluffy, beach ball type of LDL, or there could be small, dense bullet type of LDL. The light and fluffy just bounce around in the artery, and as far as we know, don't cause any problems with heart disease. But the small bullet-like LDL, those get stuck in the arteries in the cracks that are caused by high blood sugars. And so they get in there, they get oxidized, and they're really actually trying to fix the crack, but they build up over time, and it's almost like a scab that keeps growing, and that's where the plaque formation happens. So, saturated fat doesn't cause those small beady LDLs. They actually cause the light fluffy ones. And they also make your HDL go up. So, yes, your LDL total might go up, but it's mostly light and fluffy, and your HDL goes up at the same time. So it really doesn't impact your risk of heart disease at all. Dietary cholesterol, again, has no effect on your body cholesterol. They've gone back and they've done studies, and you can have as many eggs in the day as possible, and it's really not going to have an effect on your cholesterol levels in there. But it's really actually the sugar and refined grains in our diets that cause that small beady, small dense LDL. They cause the triglycerides to go higher, and it also causes your HDL to go lower. So, a couple of stories. I had, in my experience, almost a decade of doing these screenings, you see a lot of numbers. And this one guy, I had been at a cardiac rehab, and I tested his whole profile, and only two numbers came back. His total cholesterol came back. I don't remember what it was. That wasn't as significant as his triglycerides were over 650. When it's over 650, that's as high as my machine would go. So I have no idea if it was 651 or if it was 1200. I really don't know how high his triglycerides were, but they were up there. And because when his triglycerides are that high, it can't give me the number for the LDL or the HDL. That's how the machine works. So I asked him what he'd been eating, and every day he was having orange juice in the morning, which is as much sugar as soda. He was having coffee milk every day, which is all that coffee syrup, and candy every day. So I said, all right, I'm going to be back here in 1 week. Cut out those three things, just those three things, and come back next week and we'll take a look at your triglycerides. They had gone from over 650 to 214 in just 7 days. Yeah, it was all that sugar that was causing that problem. So another case that I had, we used to go out to different businesses and did screenings for people right there on site, especially factories. And there was one lady who I had tested her cholesterol. We went there every 6 months. So we had like a running tally as to how their cholesterol had been. 6 months ago, her cholesterol was awesome. I was like, all right, so we have your numbers here, and it should be another great report, and we'll just write it out for you, and you're on your way. Well, her numbers came back, and her HDL had dropped like crazy. It was in the 20s. And her triglycerides were over 550. And I'm going, her risk factor, should be under 4.5. It was higher. I'm going, what happened? What did you do? She said, I've been on the Special K diet for 2 weeks. I said, stop! Stop doing that. Because yes, the Special K diet or any of those diets that restrict calories will result in weight loss. But you don't know what it's doing behind the scenes. And Special K is not a whole grain cereal. It is basically like having a slice of white bread. So you have a refined grain for breakfast, a refined grain for lunch, and then you're having a sensible dinner, probably with more grains and more carbs at dinner. And it was completely wrecking her cholesterol profile. So I asked her what she had been doing 6 months ago. She goes, I was doing the Atkins diet. I said, go back to that. Fat actually makes a better cholesterol profile than sugar does. So that's why we're focusing on that. Heart disease is not so much a plumbing problem that we thought. I mean, that's the result, is that we end up with a plumbing problem, but what is the cause? The cause is actually a low-grade chronic inflammation that over time causes these cracks. And that's where we run into all kinds of cholesterol getting stuck there, trying to fix these cracks, trying to put a Band-Aid on this inflammation. So the inflammation sets the stage for heart disease, strokes, peripheral artery disease, vascular dementia, which is a common reason for memory loss. So we want to try to decrease the inflammation as much as possible. Obviously, stress could be part of that. There's a lot of different things. Lack of sleep, those are very important. But it's amazing how much inflammation just sugar and refined grains can cause in the body. So by cutting back on those, you're going to be making a really big decrease in the amount of inflammation that you see. Now, the other question that Dave had told me that was around, and it's relevant to heart attacks and heart health, is somebody asked about CHF, congestive heart failure. And congestive heart failure is where your body retains water around the heart, and so the main diet that they recommend for CHF is low sodium, because sodium makes you retain water. Well, the other thing that makes you retain water is carbs. So I actually focus more on the carbohydrates, typically because we end up having more carbs in our diet than we need. And by cutting back to what your body actually needs, whether it's a moderate carb or a really low carb diet, you'll see that you'll retain less water. I don't know if at this point, if you have started eating lower carb and maybe your rings aren't as tight, maybe you're not feeling as bloated, that's because you're not retaining that water. Usually the first week, you end up urinating a lot because you're getting rid of a lot of the water your body's been holding on to. So there's this balance of carbs and salt. If you're doing carbs and salt together, that is just high blood pressure city, which also can contribute to congestive heart failure or strokes. So the opposite is also not a great picture either. If you're doing really low carb and really low sodium, then you could run into headaches and dehydration. So when you cut back on carbs, it is okay to have a little bit of sodium on the side. I'm not saying, put a ton of salt in your food, but don't worry about getting low sodium cheese and low sodium, deli meats or whatever, as long as they're good quality. When you go back on the carbs to a certain amount, then you need a certain amount of sodium for that water retention you want. Does that all make sense? Mm-hmm. So if someone goes on a low carb diet and they are still restricting sodium from their habits of a low fat diet, they may end up with headaches or feeling really tired, just kind of, and one way to see if it's a sodium problem is to take 1 teaspoon of salt, throw it in a cup of water and drink it. And if in about 15 minutes you feel better, that means you need more salt in your diet. So you could, do broth, get you some sodium in there, or just a little bit of salt on your food, cooking with salt again. It's completely opposite of what we've been preaching, but that's because the low fat is very high carb. You can't have high carb and high sodium together. So we've been talking about carbs a lot, and we talked about diabetes a couple weeks ago. We're talking about cholesterol and blood pressure, and really all of this together with weight is metabolic syndrome. And so you have metabolic syndrome is if you have 3 out of this list of problems. If you have a large waistline, especially if it's up in your abdomen, if you have high triglycerides, a low HDL, high blood pressure, or high fasting sugar. Any 3 of those, then you technically have metabolic syndrome. These are all related to insulin resistance, which I know you've heard that term a lot in here. And that insulin resistance is worsened when you have a lot of carbs, refined grains, and sugars. So I like to specify refined grains and sugars because, you still get carbs from your veggies. There's even a little bit of carb in your egg. There's carbs in your food, but it's really focusing on getting rid of, or at least really cutting back on the refined grains and the sugars that are going to make the biggest impact. Some people, if they have a higher carb tolerance, they could be able to have some starchy root vegetables, or they could have beans or, some other things in their diet and be fine. Fruit. But you have to find where your carb tolerance is. So these are some websites. You may have seen these websites before. DietDoctor.com is awesome. Dave has been talking about this website for years. It took me probably a year to actually get on that website, and once I did, I said, why did it take me that long? This is great information. He's based out of Sweden. Authority Nutrition is actually based out of Iceland. You want good nutrition information? Go outside the country. Authority Nutrition is great because they actually do footnotes, and you can click on the footnotes and go directly to the studies that they're citing. So they're all fact-based. Live and Living a Low Carb is this guy, Jimmy Moore. Has anybody been on that website? So Jimmy Moore is actually not a health professional, but he's an expert on this because he did the Atkins diet and has been low carb and ketogenic, doing a ketogenic diet, which is really, really restricting carbs and doing only a moderate amount of protein, really heavy on fat, for over 10 years now. And he lost, I think, like 180 pounds. And he's interviewed a whole bunch of health experts related to this topic. He has not only his website, but a podcast, which is great to listen to. And so he's a wealth of information as well. Ditch the Carbs is great for all kinds of recipes. Zoe Harcombe, another good website. Wheat Belly blog is goes along with the book Wheat Belly. And low carb diets. About.com actually really does a great job with low carb diet information. So definitely use the internet for information. There are better sources than others, but there's a lot of Facebook groups out there. If anybody's on Facebook and wants to bounce off ideas with people beyond, if you're like, oh, it's Wednesday and I have this question. You can always get information from forums online and just a whole bunch of recipes. A lot of people have been told to cut back on fat when they're diabetic because they're worried about heart disease. It's actually causing the opposite of what we want to happen. So, any questions?
So how's everybody doing on this? I know some of you have mentioned, you were just telling me this morning about 14-pound weight loss. Has anybody gotten into this and not experienced any weight loss? If you are, you. And
I lost an inch of waist.
yeah,
The sugar, the A1C
yeah.
from 6.5 came 6.3.
So
Wonderful.
it came down. Good.
I feel less bloated, but I lost like 2 pounds. I gave them back.
Okay. So you're not getting weight loss, but you're seeing changes in your blood sugar. Okay. We need to sit down and really get into what you've changed in your diet. Okay. But you feel like you've really cut way back on carbs?
Yes.
And have you added fat?
Yes. I don't know if I've had enough fat.
Right.
You know.
The problem, she lacks the exercise and needs
Okay.
to have more cartilage.
Yeah, okay. So it can be harder, right, if you're not exercising, right? So that process is often dramatic at the beginning, but then we'll slow down, and all of us have a set point. The question is, are all the numbers that you were looking at earlier improving? In a lot of ways, that's more important than the bottom line, okay? If you have good cholesterol numbers, good blood sugar numbers, and good blood pressure numbers, the fact that you're carrying extra weight is less important, okay? Carrying extra weight has its own difficulties. Probably the biggest one has to do with our bones and joints, and that you're having trouble with knees and walking and things of that sort. You know, pick up a 20-pound sack of potatoes at the grocery store sometime and walk around with it. Okay, 20 pounds is a lot of weight. Okay, and that extra weight is all in your muscular skeletal system, and over time it takes a toll. Okay, many of us are at an age now where we've had lots of time to acquire that kind of damage over time. So anytime you can reduce weight, you're better off. And lots of people, I know this group is called How to Lose Weight Without Going Hungry, and weight loss is usually the thing that brings people in. But I'm more concerned that everybody understand the importance of changing your diet and why carbohydrates in the long run really are damaging your system, okay? We've gotten so used in this culture to the idea that a high carbohydrate diet is healthy and good for us and all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, everything from dental caries to arthritis to Alzheimer's, cancers, I mean, you name it, the list of illnesses, chronic, long-term developing illnesses that are related to the increased amount of glucose in our system is enormous. And the toll it's taking on our health and on the costs in this country are also enormous. Meanwhile, the food companies are laughing all the way to the bank because when they were told that they could take fat, which is expensive to create, think about it. We either have to grow animals for fat or raise seed plants and then go through this process of squeezing the oils out of the seeds, which is an expensive process. So the less fat that manufacturers can put in the food, the better they are, because it doesn't cost them that much. We subsidize sugar, we subsidize grains, we produce enormous amounts of it, so it's very inexpensive. So when you walk into a grocery store and you see that array of literally, what's the standard grocery store has, what, about 40,000 items in it. It's just, I mean, it boggles the mind. Those of us who were around in the 40s and 50s remember that a grocery store was small. Remember the old A&P? Didn't have that much, you know. You had one choice, two choices, that kind of thing. And mostly what you did was you went in and bought meat and vegetables there. And yes, there were these new products. But over the last 50, 60 years, we've watched the proliferation of, as Michael Pollan likes to call them, edible food-like substances. Okay? He does not use the word food. Okay? They're food-like substances. That is to say, they're processed, they're manufactured. And in that process, they lose all the positive qualities that whole food gives us. So the less you eat things out of a box or a bag, a container of some sort, the better you are. Now, obviously, we have to carry food around, so, but you think about how many people have been to France or Portugal or any of the European countries, okay, and you go to a market there. Is it full of bags and plastic and boxes and all this stuff? No, it's food, you know, right? Plain and simple food. And what do? You go there how often? Every day, or at least every other day. Why? Because what happens to food that's nutritious to it for us? It rots. And Michael Pollan will also tell you, you want to eat food that rots. Why? We're competing with bacteria. Okay, that's our mortal enemy when it comes to food, because the food that bacteria love is the same food that's good for us. And we've talked about how we have bacteria in our gut. Okay, we have more bacterial cells in our gut than we have total cells in our body. Okay, but if you can get a real egg, and then the sausage is a good source of fat and protein. Okay, and then yes, the cheese is processed cheese, but I've learned a lot about processed cheese in the last week or so. That processed cheese starts with real cheese, and then they add baking soda and vinegar and a couple of other things. It's kind of interesting. The process is to emulsify the cheese in such a way that it remains stable. That's why processed cheese will last forever. You could put a piece of processed cheese out on the counter and it'll be fine 2 weeks later. I mean, it doesn't change. Put a piece of real cheese out, what happens? Moldy. Okay, the bacteria love it. Okay, and that's a good illustration of the difference between a processed food and a real food. Okay.
So we were talking about how to stay on this diet, how to make it worthwhile, and you can go with recipes, and there's always strategies and stuff like that. But I was just wondering, for those of you who have actually started to eat this way, have you noticed anything besides your cholesterol numbers, blood pressure, A1C, or weight? Have you noticed any other awesome side effects of eating this way?
Waste reduction.
Waste reduction, yeah. I'll give you a couple examples. I feel like I'm smarter. I do not feel dull like when I'm eating carbs. I feel so dumb and cannot focus. And as soon as I take those carbs away, I feel clearer and I can think better. So I feel like genius. I feel much more awake when I don't have carbs. When I have like a plate of spaghetti or something, I go into like a carb coma. I'm just done for the night. Party's over. And the energy is drained out of me. Even without weight loss, I notice that my knees feel better. Like they feel really achy. Joints feel achy in general when I'm having carbs. When I take them out, my knees and joints feel a lot better, stronger, not achy. My breathing feels better. I think we talked about that a couple weeks ago, where carbs actually make you breathe harder. So by when I'm not overwhelming myself with too many carbs, then I feel like I have better breath. Anybody else feel anything?
Well, my reflux is improved. I'm
Yes.
not taking the pill every single day. I was taking it every day.
Yes,
Before my
acid
biggest meal.
reflux.
I
Yes.
haven't taken anything at all. I haven't had one. I haven't had a tongue in
Yeah.
months, and I was eating them a lot.
Yes. When I really started ramping up my carbs, when I started living with my husband and we started, I just kind of got into the Portuguese way of eating, and then my carb addiction took over, and I started popping Tums. I'm like, I never used to have acid reflux, and as soon as I cut back on carbs, gone, yeah. So, spicy foods and things like that, maybe not be so much the cause of it, but might be aggravating what the carbs are already causing. Yeah, very good idea. Kind of a gross subject, but I'm talking about poop all the time with Jack. But my bowel movements are much more consistent and much easier. Just like not constipated, not diarrhea, just perfect. and once a day. And so, you know, that's something else that your intestines work better if they're not being bothered by these extra sugars.
Flaxseed does wonders.
Flax seeds, yeah.
Very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, you get the bonus of the healthy fats and the fiber with that. It's excellent.
The bottles I'm talking about, I find that out. Something with me, I don't know about anybody else, but by eating flaxseed,
Yeah,
it helps me a lot. I'm
excellent.
happy for that.
And so what do you do with your flaxseed?
Well, you're not supposed to use grains, but I put it in oatmeal. I still haven't gotten away from oatmeal yet.
Yeah?
I'm trying to take it on eggs, but I'm thinking, how am I going to work with the flaxseed? You know, have to cook with it, do something.
Yeah,
Get it
yeah.
inside of me.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, you could put it into like a smoothie or a protein drink kind of thing. I make up this chocolate mousse and I'm gonna have to get it over to Dave so you guys can have it. It's basically just 3 ingredients of heavy whipping cream, cocoa powder, and Splenda. And you take those and you just whip them together, and so I'll throw some ground flaxseed in with that. So that's a nice quick recipe if you want like a chocolate fix and you don't have one of these chocolate bars that Dave has. You can use whatever sweetener of choice. You know, I just happen to start with Splenda, and that's where my taste palette is.
This chocolate survives that I can really sell. Just for enjoyment, or we have it really for us.
Just for enjoyment.
Just for enjoyment.
Yeah, and you want to make sure that if you have anything with sugar alcohols, I know I encouraged you guys talking about those earlier. If you see sugar alcohols or on the nutrition facts, or if it says anything like xylitol, maltitol, anything like that, you want to make sure you only go with whatever the serving size is. Otherwise, you'll be running for that bathroom. It's a natural laxative, so you've been warned.
Speaking of which, I guess all of us like to have something sweet in their diet, and yeah, if you want to pay for fresh berries, you can go that way and things of that sort. But I find this really helps me. You know how after a meal, you know, you've got other tasting buds. I usually kind of end a meal with cheese, and I don't like walking around with cheese in my mouth. So I have one of these, just one little square after lunch, and then 2 squares after dinner. That's it. That's what I've been doing for years. Okay, and how many people have tried these? We passed these out a while ago. Okay. You want me to open a package for those who? Okay. So as Amanda said, you do not want to eat the whole bar. You probably don't even want to eat half the bar. Experiment, okay? You'll find
I've
out.
tested the theory, okay?
Yeah.
I've tested the theory. You don't need to test it for yourself.
Right.
It is a natural laxative, and the serving size, I believe there are 4 servings in this bar.
Right.
So you want to, make it last 4 days at least.
Right. So $2 for 4 days, that's not bad. But chocolate, we know, cocoa, okay, the powder that comes from the bean in South America is very good for us. It's an antioxidant. It's a vegetable, okay? And it's good for us. It helps lower blood pressure, does a number of things, okay? So there's nothing wrong with chocolate. It's what's put into chocolate to make it palatable. If you have plain cocoa, you will not like it. It's very bitter. It's even more bitter than a coffee bean or something of that sort. Okay, so that's why we've added sugar to it. And to make it creamy, we add fat. Again, there's nothing wrong with fat in chocolate. It's the sugar that gets us, okay? So this uses a sugar substitute, but still retains the fat in it. And instead of just kind of biting and chewing it down like Americans love to do, put a little in your mouth, take a little bite, and let it melt in your mouth. Okay, melts just like any other kind of chocolate. And it tastes really wonderful. So
This could be a substitute for Easter.
there you go,
Right.
just in time.
Because what he said about chocolate being a vegetable does not apply to Cadbury eggs.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Or little
you.
peas,
Right.
or any of those.